But, and I do that with all of my speeches, and it's a lot of young people who come to see me. And one after the other, they say to me, thanks for talking about these chronic diseases, because I have, and then fill in the blanks. I have POTS, I have Crohn's disease, I have lupus, I have all of, what's happening to our children? Why are we letting this happen to them? It's the biggest issue. It's when my uncle was president, 4% of GDP went to healthcare. Today it's 20%, and it's growing exponentially. And we're sicker. We're spending $4.3 trillion annually. We spend double or triple what European nations pay per capita. And we have the worst health outcomes. We're 79th in health outcomes. We're behind Costa Rica, behind Nicaragua, behind Mongolia, behind Cuba. And all of this money that we're getting is pouring into, the Republicans and Democrats. When you ask them about health care, they're arguing about whether we should have Obamacare, or whether we should have single payer, whether we should have a public-private option, and all of those discussions are just about moving deck chairs around on the Titanic, because it's all an argument about who's going to pay for it. Nobody's talking about how to end it, how to stop the ship from sinking. And don't you deserve a president who is going to make it stop? Yeah. Don't you deserve a president who's going to say to NIH, why are you not doing your job and protecting the health of Americans? We have the highest death rate from COVID in this country. So we have 16% of the COVID deaths. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. Oh, we have the highest body count of any nation in the world. Why are people getting awards for this? Why are we saying they did such a great job? They literally did the worst job of any health officials on the face of the earth. And when you ask CDC, how is this a good thing, what you guys did? They say, well, it's not our fault, because the reason that happened is because Americans have this chronic disease epidemic, the highest chronic disease burden on earth. CDC says that the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So they had obesity, they had asthma, they had diabetes, and they had one other thing, or some other combination. And so CDC, that's their explanation. But that doesn't exonerate CDC. Why is not anybody asking the next question? Why are we the sickest people on earth? This is destroying our military preparedness. 60% of kids cannot qualify for the military. It's destroying our economy. 93% of Medicare costs are now going into treating chronic disease. 80% of that $4.3 trillion is because of chronic disease. And nobody is talking about it. When Congress said to EPA, tell us what year the autism epidemic began, we went from, according to CDC data, 1 in 10,000 people with autism, full-blown autism in my generation, so 70-year-old men. By full-blown autism, I mean non-verbal, non-toilet trained, and then with the stereotypical behavior, head banging, toe walking, stimming, and other stereotypical behavior, self-harm, tactile and audio sensitivities, all of these characteristics. It's 1 in 10,000 in my generation. In my kids' generation, it's 1 in every 34 kids. 1 in every 22 boys. And nobody's asking about this. Nobody's saying what happened to our children. So Congress said to EPA, tell us what year the autism epidemic began. And EPA is a captive agency. But it's captive by the oil industry, the coal industry, the chemical, big ag. It's not captive by pharma, because it doesn't regulate pharma. So it came back with actually an honest study. And it said 1989. It is a red line. That's the year it all began. If you look at these other diseases, they all began around the same timeline. You know, the autoimmune diseases, the neurological diseases, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, ASD, autism, and the allergic diseases. And the remedy, the response by the regulatory agencies is to put all of our kids on drugs. There's 120 million Adderall prescriptions a year, 120 million SSRI prescriptions, 120 million benzo prescriptions. And we have a whole generation. These kids are not supposed to be sick like this. And why aren't our pediatricians talking about it? Why aren't the health regulators? Why aren't our politicians? Why did not the Republican debate? Nobody in the Republican debates mentioned any of these things. You know, in fact, Callie Means, this guy said those debates were like a 1988 cocktail party, like the big elephant in the room. It's bigger than our military budget. We were told in 1992, when the Berlin Wall came down, we were told we were going to get a peace dividend and we were going to go from $600 billion a year military expenditures to $200 billion a year. Instead, we're at $1.3 trillion. If you include the veterans benefits, which is $300 million, and the national security and foreign aid that is military related, it's $1.3 trillion. But healthcare, so that we got to cut that. If we, our kids are paying $34 trillion. That's what we've stuck our kids with, that $43 trillion bill. And our kids are feeling betrayed because we betrayed them. We did that to them. And their lives are going to be constricted and diminished because of it. And we've got to stop that. We've got to figure out a way. We're like all of these wars that we get into, we're like the alcoholic who's behind on his mortgage. And he's in the bar with his milk money buying rounds for strangers. And that's how we're behaving as a nation, like it's endless. And we know our kids are going to foot the bill for that. And in 2013, there was a poll done of American kids between 18 and 34 years old, where they were asked, "Are you proud of the United States of America?" And 85% of them said yes. The same poll taken 3 months ago, 18% said yes. So during the terms of the last two presidents who are now running for a second chance, each of them, an entire generation of American kids has lost pride in our country and lost faith and hope in their own futures. And nobody's talking about this. And what I'm going to do as president is I'm going to restore their faith in this country. And their faith that there's at least one political leader in this country who is making them his priority. That is promising that I'm going to get them into homes so that they can borrow money, so that they can pursue their entrepreneurial impulses, so that they can have freedom. And, I promised when I started this journey 9 months ago in Boston, And I talked about the division among Americans, this very, very toxic polarization that is more poisonous and more rancorous than any time since the American Civil War. And I said that during my campaign and during my 8 years as presidency, that I was going to try to end that division. And by not feeding into the rancor, by not feeding the poison, by not being mean-spirited toward my political opponents, by finding the middle ground, by focusing on the values that we all share in common, rather than those culture war issues that are used to keep us all apart. And we all watched this, this shift in wealth happen in this country, where during COVID, which was the coup de grace, where they closed 3.3 million American businesses, the heart of our country, the small business, the small entrepreneur that built this country, that provide 75% of the employment, 52% of our GDP. And they shut them all down overnight with no due process, no just compensation. Two presidents, President Trump and President Biden, did that to our country. And they shifted $4 trillion upward to this new oligarchy of billionaires. They created in 500 days, President Trump and President Biden created 500 new billionaires, one a day. And that money was a zero-sum game. That money came directly from the American middle class. And they financialized our economy, and rather than making it about production. And when the king and queen go out on the balustrades of their castle and they look out over their subjects and they see they're all fighting each other, they go back to the banquet hall and they pop champagne corks because they know nobody's coming over the wall for them. And so this is the strategy that the oligarchy uses to keep us from noticing that they're stealing everything, our equity, our health, our wealth. They're commoditizing our landscapes, our children, the health of our children. And what I promise is that I'm not going to feed into that rancor. I'm going to find the common ground that unites us and then lead everybody over that wall and take back our country from the people who have stolen from us. And what I've found over the past 9 months is, in traveling all over this country and speaking to so many of you, is that those landscapes that are occupied by the common ground, by the things that we share in common, the beliefs, the ideologies, the aspirations, the ambitions, the vision for our country, that it's so much larger, those landscapes, and the little issues that they use to keep us all apart. Everybody in this country wants to help our veterans. They want it. They don't like the idea that the wives and families of veterans are eating in soup kitchens. They don't like that. They want to make sure that with this epidemic of PTSD that we've created with forever wars, that the veterans, that it's a priority for our country to end that and take care of the people who served us. Everybody wants us to once again have the best education system in the country, and to have, ultimately to have school choice, so that the marketplace can dictate what the best schools are, and that everybody has a choice to go to send their kids to the best schools that there are, and that's going to raise the quality of all of our schools. And nobody likes the idea that the Mexican drug cartels are running U.S. border policy, and that last month, 23,000 illegal immigrants came into this country, and that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And I'm watching what's happening in New York today, where they've cut 5%. Mayor Adams has cut, who originally was an advocate for sanctuary cities, and now is saying this is destroying our city. 5% of the police budget has been cut. 5% of the fire departments have been cut. 5% of sanitation, 5% of healthcare across the board, in order to raise the billions of dollars that are now necessary. And the migrants are encamped on Randall's Island on the playing fields, so kids can't play sports anymore. And a lot of these kids were locked in their homes for 2.5 years. Many of them were scholarship track kids whose lives were built around being able to play their sport, and they weren't allowed to. And the damage that did, and now they can't go out on those playing fields because of the migrant. It's not good. I've spent time in Yuma. I'm going to go this week back to the border again, and I've seen it coming over. It's not a humanitarian kindness what's happened. Everybody is getting hurt by this. The migrants themselves are getting devastated by this. It's a catastrophe for everybody. And we can end it, and I will end it as president immediately. I will end it as president. I will end the chronic disease epidemic. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down to NIH, my first week in office, to Bethesda, and I'm going to bring in the top branch and division chairs. I'm going to say, we're going to give infectious disease and drug development a little break for about 8 years. And we're going to find out why our kids are the sickest children in the world. Everybody wants a clean environment in this country. If you want to divide Americans, then talk only about climate. That's it, and nothing else. If you want to unite people, talk about clean air and clean water and protecting our wilderness and protecting our wildlife and our fisheries and our public lands and the things that connect us to our past and to our history, that provide context to our communities, that are the source ultimately of our values, our virtues, our character as a people. Nobody thinks that there's a difference between Republican children and Democratic children. We all want, everybody loves in this country regenerative agriculture. Everybody wants our kids to be fed, a carrot. You have to eat 8 carrots today to get the same nutritional value as 1 carrot when I was a kid. And those 8 carrots are loaded with glyphosate and neonicotinoids and atrazine and all of this stuff that is just aggravating and feeding the chronic disease epidemic. And we need the healthiest food in the world in this country. And we need to protect our soils. We need to protect farm culture. The small family farmer, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson said that American democracy was rooted in tens of thousands of independent freeholds owned by individuals, their homes, their farms, etc., each with a stake in our economic system, each with a stake in our democracy. And today, U.S. agricultural policy is to commoditize agriculture, to give us, filler instead of food, and to get the small farmer off the land and replace them with robots and chemical agriculture, and to industrialize the landscapes of this country, the Purple Mountains majesty. And everybody wants a clean environment. When I was fighting to get the lead out of the water in Flint, Michigan, we had Hell's Angels standing shoulder to shoulder with urban blacks. The same happened at Standing Rock. because we didn't sell it as a climate issue. We said this is about protecting one of America's sacred places. And there were business people there were Republicans, there were Democrats. It was every demographic. And so if you talk about things that we share in common, we can solve the problems of this country, and we can unify this country. And, you know, everybody says they're going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C., and I think they mean it. You know, these presidential candidates, I think President Trump meant it. But then, you know, they get into office and they're confronted by these agencies, and each one has their own problems. Each one is, you know, they're all corrupt, they're all captured, but each one of them has different solutions. And, you know, President Trump said that he was going to drain the swamp, but then he brought John Bolton in to run the NSA. It was like the template for swamp creatures. And he brought Mike Pompeo, who was, you know, in to run the State Department, who was the most bellicose and belligerent foreign policy, militarized foreign policy of any individual in our country. He brought Scott Gottlieb, a business partner to Pfizer, in to run FDA. And Gottlieb did an $88 billion favor for his company. And then he left FDA back to the board of directors to collect his payoff. And if you look at every one of the agencies, the same thing happened. There were more lobbyists in government than any time in American history, running the agencies that are supposed to regulate their industries. And it wasn't about draining the swamp. And as I believed President Trump wanted to do that, but I don't think he was able to. I don't think he was able to stand up to his bureaucracy. And he said great things. He said, I don't want to do lockdowns. They make no sense. And then a week later, he ordered them. Ordered, you know, a 2-week lockdown that ended up in almost 2 years. And he, you know, he said that hydroxychloroquine worked, and then he backed down, so he was able to be rolled by his bureaucracy. And I believe that he had his chance, and that President Biden had his chance. And the big issues that are confronting our nation, which is the systematic destruction of the working poor, of the American middle class, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And we need a big change in this country. And you know, the media and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, neither of them are saying that they are offering a change. They're all saying, you better vote for my candidate because the other guy is scary and he's going to destroy the republic. And don't you think that Americans deserve something better than the lesser of two evils? Don't you think that you deserve a president who's going to inspire you, who's going to listen to you, who's going to understand what your problems are, and is going to work every fiber of his being to solve them? So I'm going to finish. You know, my poll numbers are great. I have higher favorability ratings now, 52%, compared to I'm 10 or 20 points ahead of President Biden and President Trump. I'm beating President Biden, President Trump among young Americans, and among people under 45 in the battleground states, among all Americans under 35 across the country. And I'm at between 20 and 24 points nationally, which means I'm only a few points away from winning the election. The winner of this election is probably going to have 40 points. Now, I can fix this country. All of these agencies that intimidate normal politicians, I've sued every one of them. I've sued, and I've sued. I'm going to close, but I've sued NIH, CDC, FDA, EPA more than any other. I just sued FCC and won the suit in the Federal Court of Appeals. I've sued USDA and DOT, all of these agencies, and when you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. And I understand in many cases who the individuals are who need to be moved and the perverse incentives that put corporate capture on steroids. And I am going to end it, and I'm going to focus on the health, on the economy, on the economics affecting middle-class Americans, on rebuilding the American middle class, and I want you to hold me accountable. If I have not significantly lessened the chronic disease epidemic in children within 3 years of me going to office, I don't want you to vote for me the next time. And I'm going to do it. I can change this. I can give you back your country, but I need your help. I need you right now. In this state, we need 10,000 signatures to get me on the ballot. And all of you, I hope all of you will go sign up. We have clipboards where you can sign up all around and on your way out. People will hold them up if you have them. And then, and I need people who are going to volunteer to do ballot access for us. And I need you, particularly the one demographic I'm doing poorly in is the one I should be doing best in, which is baby boomers. Ooh. So, if you're a young person, go and tie your parents down and make them listen to a Joe Rogan podcast. And we'll take back our country. I said in Boston, I said that if you give me a sword and some ground to stand on, I will give you back your country. And I intend to do that. I need your help. Thank you all very much.